So this is a continuation of our exponents and square root review. This is specifically dealing with radicals in the denominator. So all of these examples deal with a square root or a radical in the denominator, and we're trying to simplify this. We do not want that radical in the denominator. So there's an easy way to get that out, but some of the algebra in simplifying all the way can get a little tedious or tricky, but the methods I'm showing you should work for anything that you've got here until we start adding addition and subtraction into that denominator as well. So here's the basic idea. When we have the radical in the denominator, what we want to do is I want to multiply. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply by whatever that denominator is, so in this case the square root of 5, divided by the square root of 5. And the reason that this is okay is because this is the same thing as multiplying by 1. So anything divided by itself is just 1. So the square root of 5 divided by the square root of 5 is 1. And if I multiply my original expression by 1, it doesn't change the value of it. It's just going to make it look different, which is what we want. And by doing this, square root of 5 times the square root of 5, when I do this multiplication, that's going to make that radical go away. When we multiply fractions, remember we multiply straight across. So numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So what's going to happen here is I've got 4 times the square root of 5. And I can't combine those in any way. Students often want to somehow make that like the square root of 20 or just 20 or something like that. We cannot combine those. So it's just left as 4 times the square root of 5. On the bottom, since they're both square roots, we can multiply those. And so square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 25. Which you might have noticed, that's going to work out really nicely. So on the top, I've got 4 times the square root of 5. On the bottom, the square root of 25 is just 5. And as you do this in these simple ones, it's always going to be a very similar pattern. And what's always going to happen on the bottom, if I have the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, it's always going to be the square root of 5 squared, which is just 5. So you'll get to the point where you can kind of skip this middle step and just recognize that when I do this, I'm going to end up with just 5. So this process, we're going to say something like this. So whatever that radical is on the bottom, so for any denominator, square root of a, so square root of whatever, we will multiply by the square root of a over the square root of a. Because that's just multiplying by 1, and it will get rid of that square root in the bottom. This would be a good time to try part C, because part C is exactly like this, fairly simple, just one step. So again, I'm multiplying, since I've got square root of 2 on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2. 5 times the square root of 2, I've just got to leave that as is. And on the bottom, square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is square root of 4. Or if you were able to jump right to it, that's just going to be 2. Moving on to these other couple, we're going to have a little bit more work to do here, and we'll see why in just a second. First step is the same, times the square root of 8 over the square root of 8. Now when I multiply, notice on the top, I've got 2 times the square root of 6. So it's 2 times the square root of 6 times the square root of 8. I can combine the square roots. The 2 is going to have to stay out though. 6 times 8 is 48. And on the bottom, we know that that's just going to end up as 8. So something you might be noticing is I've got a fraction which we can think of as division. I've got 2 over 8. We could simplify that. We don't want to do that quite yet, though. I'm going to simplify this a little bit further first. We want to completely simplify that radical like we were doing previously. So I'm going to kind of do that down here separate. So I've got the square root of 48, and I want to break that down. 48 is the same as 16 times 3. So I've got square root of 16 times the square root of 3. The square root of 16 is 4. So the simplest version of this is 4 times the square root of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this with 4 times the square root of 3. Because we've shown that that's what that is, right? The square root of 48 is equal to 4 times the square root of 3. So this becomes 2 times 4 times the square root of 3 over 8. Because again, this is all just multiplication. This was 2 times the square root of 48. The square root of 48 is 4 times the square root of 3. So it's just this string of multiplication. 2 times 4 is 8. So we have 8 times the square root of 3 over 8. Now this reduces, right? When we reduce this, I'm not worried about what's under the radical. I'm just worried about the numbers here. So I've got 8 over 8, which is the same as 1. And so I don't need to write that 1. This simply reduces down to the square root of 3. This would be a good opportunity to follow this model and do part D, which is going to be a little bit more work, but very similar. So part D, let's start out exactly as we always do. Square root of 6 on the bottom, so times square root of 6 over square root of 6. Still got my 12. I'm going to combine my radicals. So 6 times 12 gives me 72. So 12 times the square root of 72 over 6. And then that square root of 72, again, that's something that can be broken down. So square root of 72. Again, you can completely factor this out and pull out pairs, or you can look to do that prime factorization. That would be completely factoring. Looking to divide by one of our perfect squares. So if you're going perfect square route, the largest one is going to be 36 times 2. Which is the same as 6 times the square root of 2. So again, I'm just going to replace this with 6 times the square root of 2, which means I've got 12 times 6 times square root of 2 over 6. Now, you might notice right away that this is all multiplication and division, so I've got 6 over 6. So that would just turn into a 1. We could jump right to 12 times the square root of 2, but let's just work it out in case that's not something that you see. So 12 times 6, we just did. That's 72 square root of 2 over 6. And now 72 divided by 6 again is just 12. So I'm going to write this just down below because I'm running out of room. 12 times the square root of 2.